7 keys to writing a perfect conclusion for a scientific report. I'm going to take 10 years of writing secrets that worked on both assessments and published papers so that you can apply them today to your own conclusion. Number 1 is structure. Every conclusion needs 2 main components of your main findings and a future statement. When we write about our main findings, we're trying to synthesize our key results. We're not trying to simply summarize or list them. We want to take the key findings, the really big results of your study, and then relate them back to your aims and research questions. So we're talking about not just what we found, but why it's valuable and how it can be applied if we're in a practical science discipline. The second component is your future statement, and that's where we can talk about what work should be done in the future or predictions that we might have. Some things you can include here are how your study impacts future research, or how your study fits into a larger theme or topic or body of research. What other questions does your research raise? Or you can discuss what other work needs to be done in your field. For example, maybe you did a study in one particular geographic location and you want to recommend that the same study is done but in other geographic locations. We also want to highlight how our study contributes to our field. And remember to include any practical implications. For example, maybe your study is in agricultural science and you want to provide a recommendation to farmers on a new way of applying fertilizer to a certain type of crop. Now, not everybody will have practical implications. For example, my research, I compare current climate to past climate, so it's less about practical application. So you'll have to decide based on your discipline. Key number 2 is to avoid common mistakes that many people make when writing their conclusion. For example, citing. You don't want to cite other people's work in your conclusion. Your conclusion is a synthesis and summary of your own study. You're not trying to talk about somebody else's here. Negative or neutral language. It can be tempting to put our work down a little bit when we're trying to summarize it because we're not comfortable with highlighting the value that it actually has. Some negative or neutral language could be, this is just one idea, or this is just one approach, or there's other ways to do this, or there's no clear answer. We want to avoid these because it confuses our reader, and all we're trying to do here is bring our key point home to them, not push it to the side. We also don't need to introduce the conclusion. While we can use sentences like in conclusion or in summary, they tend to lead the reader to think that we're just going to repeat what we've already said in our discussion or in our scientific report, when we're actually just trying to highlight our significance or relevance to them. Usually a conclusion already has a subheading, so your reader already knows they're reading the conclusion section. You can just jump right into talking about your main findings. An easy way to do this is to have your first sentence as a statement sentence about your main finding, and then have your second sentence providing some detail to back up or provide an example on that main finding statement. One of the biggest mistakes people make, though, is providing interpretations in your conclusion. They belong in your discussion. There is one exception. There is one style of scientific report where a discussion and conclusion is combined into one section. So double check with your professor or journal if that's what they're looking for. Otherwise, interpretations should be entirely left out of your conclusion. You've already provided those in your discussion. We also don't want to include all our findings here. That's for the results section, right? Our results section details every single one of our results or findings. And then our discussion talks about why they're relevant or important and how they relate to other people's work. Our conclusion is then synthesizing the key findings that we've talked about in our discussion. Key number 3 is to use simple and clear language. So we want to avoid technical jargon and abbreviations. We want anybody to be able to pick up our scientific report and read our conclusion and understand it completely. And with that, we also want to avoid fluff words and filler content. Our conclusion is a really concise summary of our scientific report, so we don't want to waste words that don't mean anything. Some filler content phrases to avoid for all practical purposes. Needless to say, in spite of the fact that. The reason why is that. Can you see that these phrases all have the same problem? They don't say anything. They're just words, but they have no meaning or impact to them. Only use words that will drive your point home to the reader. A good way to judge this is if you read back a sentence, if you can remove the words and it still makes sense, then remove them. Key number 4 is the most important, and that's to stick to the nothing rule. The nothing rule only applies to 2 sections of a scientific report, the abstract and the conclusion. And that's because they're both summaries of your study. The nothing rule is nothing new and nothing repeated. So that means your conclusion is all about careful phrasing. Essentially, we're trying to distill down our entire discussion into 2 or 3 sentences without repeating anything. Key number 5 is to use your discussion as a guide. If I ever had trouble deciding what my main findings were, I used the subheadings in my discussion as a guide. For example, in my results section, my subheadings were things like morphology, which are what my rocks look like, but my discussion had subheadings like climate and environment. That instantly tells me that the main findings I need to talk about in my conclusion are about what I found out about the climate and environment, not about what my rocks look like or are made of. Key number 6 is that you want your conclusion to be standalone. We want anyone to be able to pick up our scientific report, read our conclusion, and understand our study completely and also why it's important and any implications for the future that it might have. And actually, most reviewers, markers, and readers will read your introduction and then your conclusion before they read anything else in your scientific report. After years of working in university, I can tell you that that sets the tone for how they'll mark your scientific report. If they can instantly see that you understood your work and why it's important, they're going to mark it more favorably. Key number 7 is a concise conclusion. A conclusion should only be around 150 words. Occasionally you get longer for literature reviews, but for scientific reports, 150 words is the most common amount. And that's because remembering your conclusion only contains your main finding, why it's important, and what your future statement is. You've distilled down the entire highlights of your study into 2 or 3 sentences, and then you've provided your future statement in 1 or 2 sentences. We don't need more words to highlight the importance of our study to the reader. If you're writing your scientific report now, watch this video for a step-by-step guide on how to write each section.